Hey chamber music fans, I'm Michelle Schumann, the Artistic Director of the Austin Chamber Music Center, and I am here to tell you about our upcoming season and especially our upcoming concert. As always, we're really excited to be able to present a bunch of fantastic concerts featuring great music and all the while telling meaningful stories about the world around us. And this year we're using some great thinkers, authors, activists, and using some of their quotes to inspire our programs. So we'll have quotes by Elie Wiesel, Maya Angelou, John Muir, and Helen Keller. And for this upcoming concert, we're using a quote by George Bernard Shaw, who said, "Life isn't about finding yourself, it's about creating yourself." And so we are looking at several amazing composers who found themselves by creating themselves. And we're looking at their Opus 1 compositions, the very first pieces that they wrote and presented to the world in order to present themselves. And I'm always excited about concerts that feature these kind of early works of composers because we really come to know composers by their voice and by what they've done their entire life. But to look back at the first things that they really presented, it's always magical to me the way these composers show so much of themselves right in the onset of those beginning days. And we will have a piece by Franz Schubert, of course, one of the great chamber composers of all time, great composers in every way, in every genre of all time. And his first piece was called The Erlking. And it is a song, usually for baritone. In this case, we'll have it for tenor and piano. And it's a song that is beautiful and virtuosic and terrifying and tells a story through many different voices. And so what's cool about that is that the singer will use these different voices and these characters in this short song that really packs a punch. I think it showed Schubert to be this like mastermind at such a young time in his compositional output. And we will also have a piece by Jessie Montgomery, who is a superstar composer of our time. She's also a violinist, and she wrote this as her Opus 1, her Rhapsody #1 for solo violin. It's an outstanding piece that shows so much of her voice, again, at a young time. It's exciting and virtuosic and beautiful, and such a great entry point into her music. Also on the program is Beethoven's Opus 1 #1. I'm always like, this is one of my favorite things, is that Beethoven, Beethoven, one of our greatest composers of all time, he chose the piano trio to be his Opus 1 #1, which is just staggering to me. That was the genre that he wanted to let people know who he was. And these pieces, he wrote 3 in the Opus 1, and we're going to do Opus 1 #1. And it's sparkling and full of life and full of energy and also full of surprises, and gives us such an insight into Beethoven's voice. It's always a super exciting piece to play, but especially under these circumstances where we're like exploring this idea of like creation and newness and new voices. And then also on the program is a piano quartet by Josef Suk, who is a fantastic violinist and real leader in chamber music as a performer, but also as a composer, and he's a late romantic. And so this work is like, it's heroic and it's kind of heart on the sleeve. Just really tells us a great story about this sort of like late romanticism and his place in there. And so it's an exciting work and maybe a new work to many people, but definitely a work worth knowing. So I'm super excited about this program. We have some amazing players who will be joining us. And as always, we'll be there to exude this fantastic music, but also like take a deeper level into it to see how it kind of corresponds with the things that we have in our own lives. The idea of like finding ourselves, creating ourselves. What do we have to bring to this world? And how can we be inspired by these great composers who did so much to infuse life and energy into our own lives? I can't wait to see you there.